At the funeral, Daniel Carter stopped his work to catch a pregnant woman before she hit the ground. No one else moved. The family turned away. Hours later, a lawyer appeared at his door. "You're Daniel Carter? The man who helped Eliza Whitmore this morning?" Daniel nodded. The lawyer opened his briefcase. "Our late employer left you $500 million. Daniel's mouth went dry. "I don't understand." Daniel Carter woke at 5:30 that morning, same as every morning. The apartment was still dark. He moved quietly through the small kitchen, boiling water for instant coffee, spreading peanut butter on bread for Ben's lunch. Through the thin walls, he could hear the neighbor's television already playing. Ben appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. The boy had made his own bed. Daniel could see the crooked corners from across the room. "Morning, Bud," Daniel said. Ben climbed onto the stool by the counter. He watched his father pack the lunch into a paper bag. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Daniel looked up. "Always." The boy's face was serious, too serious for 7 years old. "Why do you always help other people but we're still poor?" Daniel stopped moving. He set down the bread knife and walked around the counter. He sat on the stool beside his son and pulled him close. "Because, son, doing good things isn't about getting paid back," Daniel said quietly. "You do good things because it's right. And someday, you'll understand." Ben nodded against his father's chest. Daniel kissed the top of his head. Then he stood, finished packing the lunch, and left for work. The cemetery was on the east side of town. Daniel had worked there for 2 years, mostly grounds maintenance and preparing grave sites. The pay was enough to cover rent if he picked up night shifts at the warehouse and weekend handyman jobs. His wife Sarah had been gone 3 years. Cancer. The medical bills were still coming. But Daniel didn't think about that while he worked. He thought about Ben, about making sure the boy had clean clothes and hot meals and someone who showed up. That morning, there was a funeral scheduled for 11. George Whitmore. Daniel had seen the name in the paper. Some kind of real estate developer. The family had paid for the premium service, which meant Daniel would be standing by during the ceremony in case anything was needed. He was raking leaves near the chapel when the first cars arrived. Black sedans. Expensive. A woman stepped out wearing a dress that probably cost more than Daniel made in a month. She was tall, sharp-featured, mid-30s maybe. Behind her came a man in a tailored suit, older, with the kind of posture that said he was used to being obeyed. They walked past Daniel without looking at him. More family members arrived. They gathered near the entrance, speaking in low voices. But Daniel could hear enough. Estate. Assets. Lawyers. No one mentioned the dead man by name. Then another car pulled up, smaller, older. A woman stepped out, moving slowly. She was pregnant, clearly. 7 or 8 months, Daniel guessed. She wore a simple black dress and flat shoes. Her face was pale. She walked toward the chapel. The tall woman from earlier turned and saw her. "Eliza?" Her voice cut through the quiet. "I thought you understood you're not family anymore." The pregnant woman stopped. Her name was Eliza then. She didn't answer. She just stood there, trembling slightly, looking past everyone toward the chapel doors. No one moved to help her. The family turned their backs. Eliza took a few more steps, then swayed. Her hand reached for the wall but missed. Daniel dropped the rake and ran. He caught her before she hit the ground. His hands gripped her arms, steadying her. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. "You're okay," Daniel said. "I've got you. Just breathe." He guided her to a bench near the side of the building. Someone had left a bottle of water on the groundskeeper's cart. Daniel grabbed it, twisted the cap, handed it to her. "Drink this, slow." Eliza's hands shook as she took the bottle. She drank, coughed a little, then drank again. Daniel pulled a clean rag from his pocket, dampened it with water from the cart, and handed it to her. "Put this on your neck. You'll feel better." She did. After a moment, the color started coming back to her face. She looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm Eliza. I just wanted to see him one last time." Daniel nodded. He didn't ask who him was. It didn't matter. "If you need anything, just say so. I'm here." Eliza smiled, but it was the saddest smile Daniel had ever seen. She stayed on the bench while the service began inside. Daniel stayed nearby, trimming hedges that didn't need trimming, just in case she needed help again. When the service ended and people started leaving, Eliza stood. She looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then she said something strange. "He was right about you." Daniel frowned. "Who?" But Eliza just shook her head, still smiling that sad smile, and walked to her car. Daniel finished his shift at 3. He picked up Ben from the after-school program, took him home, started dinner. Mac and cheese from a box. Ben set the table without being asked. They were halfway through eating when someone knocked on the door. Daniel wiped his hands on a dish towel and opened it. A man stood in the hallway, middle-aged, wearing a suit that looked even more expensive than the ones at the funeral. He carried a leather briefcase. "Daniel Carter?" the man asked. "That's me." "My name is Thomas Reed. I'm an attorney. I represent the estate of George Whitmore." Daniel blinked. "I'm sorry. I don't know anyone by that name." Thomas Reed smiled slightly. "May I come in? This won't take long." Daniel hesitated, then stepped aside. Ben looked up from his plate, curious. Thomas sat in the chair across from the couch, set his briefcase on his lap, and opened it. "Mr. Whitmore passed away 2 days ago," Thomas said. "The funeral you attended this morning was his final service." "I work at the cemetery," Daniel said. "I didn't know him." "Perhaps not consciously." Thomas pulled out a document. "But Mr. Whitmore knew you, and he left you something." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Left me what?" Thomas looked him in the eye. "His entire estate, approximately $500 million. The words didn't make sense. Daniel heard them, but they felt like sounds from another language. "That's not possible," Daniel said slowly. "It is," Thomas replied. "Mr. Whitmore amended his will 6 months ago. He left very specific instructions. If, on the day of his passing, you performed an act of selfless kindness witnessed by Eliza Whitmore, you would inherit everything. Miss Whitmore confirmed this afternoon that you did exactly that." Daniel sat down. His legs wouldn't hold him anymore. "I don't understand. Why would he do that? I don't even know him." Thomas leaned forward. "Do you remember 5 years ago? A fire in the parking garage at the Riverside office tower?" Daniel's mind went blank. Then something surfaced. A memory. Smoke, heat, screaming. "There was a car on fire," Daniel said quietly. "Someone was trapped inside." "That someone was George Whitmore," Thomas said. "You were working as a janitor in that building. You pulled him out. You saved his life. Then you left before anyone could thank you." Daniel did remember. The old man had been unconscious. Daniel had broken the window, dragged him out, waited until he heard sirens. Then he'd gone back to work because his shift wasn't over. "He found out who you were," Thomas continued. "He spent the next 5 years watching you, not intrusively, just observing. He saw how you raised your son. He saw you help a homeless man outside a grocery store. He saw you return money to a customer who'd overpaid you. He saw you refuse tips from elderly clients when you fixed their plumbing." Thomas pulled out another paper. This one was handwritten. "He wrote this himself. I built an empire, but my children only learned to take. Daniel Carter has nothing, but he gives everything. Wealth doesn't make a man good. Kindness does. And only Daniel deserves what I've built." Daniel's throat closed. He looked at Ben. who was staring at him with wide eyes. The condition about Eliza, Thomas said, was his final test. He wanted to be sure you were still the same man, that the years hadn't changed you. When you helped her this morning, you proved you were. Thomas stood. He placed the documents on the table. Come to my office tomorrow morning. We'll begin the paperwork. He walked to the door, then turned back. Mr. Whitmore believed in you, Mr. Carter. He believed you would use this gift the way he never could. Then he left. Daniel sat in the silence. Ben climbed down from his chair and walked over. He pressed himself against his father's side. Dad? Ben's voice was small. What's happening? Daniel wrapped his arms around his son. He couldn't speak. He just held on. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table with the documents Thomas Reed had left, reading the same lines over and over. Ben had asked twice if he was okay. Daniel had said yes both times. It wasn't true. The next morning, his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice. Soft. This is Eliza Whitmore. We met yesterday. Could we talk? There's a coffee shop on Market Street. I can be there in an hour. Daniel almost said no. Then he thought about the way she'd looked at him at the funeral, like she'd been searching for something and found it. I'll be there, he said. The coffee shop was small, half empty. Eliza sat in the corner booth, both hands wrapped around a mug. She looked tired. Daniel slid into the seat across from her. Thank you for coming, she said. Daniel nodded. He didn't know what to say. Eliza took a breath. I need to tell you the whole story. About George. About me. About why he did this. Okay. George Whitmore was my great-uncle by blood, she began. My father David was his younger brother. My parents died when I was 8. Car accident. George took me in, raised me like I was his own daughter, legally adopted me. So even though he was my great-uncle, he became my grandfather, in every way that mattered. Her fingers tightened around the mug. He was a good man. Tough, yes, but good. He built his company from nothing, worked 18-hour days, made a fortune. But his real children, Alexander and Victoria, they only saw the money. They never saw him. Daniel listened. I worked at the company after college. I loved it. Loved making George proud. Then 2 years ago I met someone, a teacher. His name was Michael. He taught 5th grade. He made $42,000 a year and thought that was enough. She smiled, but it hurt to see. The family hated him. Victoria called him a leech. Alexander said I was embarrassing the Whitmore name. They told me to end it or leave. I chose Michael. What happened? Daniel asked quietly. They kicked me out of the company, cut off my trust fund, told me if I got pregnant, I'd better get rid of it or never come back. Her voice wavered. George was already sick by then. Lung cancer. He was in and out of hospitals. He couldn't fight them. But he called me once, told me to do what made me happy. And you did. I did. Michael and I moved to a small apartment across town. He kept teaching. I got a job at a bookstore. We were happy. She looked down. Then 6 months ago, he was driving home from work. A drunk driver ran a red light. He died at the scene. Daniel's chest tightened. I found out I was pregnant a week after the funeral, Eliza continued. I thought about what Victoria said, about getting rid of it. But I couldn't. This baby is all I have left of him. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. 2 weeks before George died, he called me, asked me to come see him. I went to the hospital. He looked so small in that bed. He told me he'd changed his will, said he was leaving everything to a man named Daniel Carter, someone who'd saved his life. Someone who'd been kind every day since without knowing George was watching. Daniel felt like he couldn't breathe. He told me to go to the funeral, to watch you. He said if you were still the same man, If you still helped people without thinking about what you'd get back, then I should confirm it to Thomas, that you deserved everything. Why didn't you keep it? Daniel asked. You're his family. You loved him. You should have that money. Eliza shook her head. George knew I didn't need money to be a good person. I already am one. But he knew you needed it. Not because you're greedy, because you're struggling. And more than that, he trusted you'd use it the right way. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed, Daniel's name written across the front in shaky handwriting. He asked me to give you this, if everything went the way he hoped. Daniel took it. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. He read it aloud, his voice breaking. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means Eliza confirmed you're still the man I believed you to be. I know my family will fight you. They'll say you don't deserve this. But let me tell you something. I spent my whole life making money. I thought that's what mattered. I thought, if I built something big enough, my children would respect me. They didn't. They just waited for me to die so they could take it. Daniel had to stop. He swallowed hard and kept going. You saved my life and didn't ask for anything. You've lived your whole life helping people who can't help you back. That's not weakness. That's strength. This inheritance is yours because you'll do what I couldn't. You'll use it to make the world better, not just yourself richer. Don't refuse this gift because you're afraid. Accept it because your son deserves a father who doesn't have to work 3 jobs. Because people like you deserve to win sometimes. I trust you, Daniel. Now, trust yourself. George Whitmore. Daniel set the letter down. He couldn't see clearly anymore. Eliza reached across the table and took his hand. He loved you like a son, and he was right about you. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Eliza's phone buzzed. She looked at it, and her face went pale. What is it? Daniel asked. Alexander, she said. He knows I met with you. That afternoon, someone knocked on Daniel's apartment door. Hard. Angry. Daniel opened it. 2 people stood there. The tall woman from the funeral and the man in the tailored suit. Alexander and Victoria Whitmore. Victoria didn't wait to be invited in. She pushed past Daniel into the apartment. So, this is where you live, she said, looking around with obvious distaste. Charming. Alexander followed her, calmer but colder. He looked at Daniel like he was examining a bug. Mr. Carter, Alexander said, we need to talk. I don't think we do, Daniel replied. Victoria laughed. It was sharp and mean. You think you're someone now? A groundskeeper who dug holes for a living? You think you can just take our family's fortune? I didn't take anything, Daniel said. George gave it. Our father was dying, Alexander said quietly. He wasn't thinking clearly. He was manipulated. By who? By you. By Eliza. By whoever convinced him to betray his own children. Daniel felt his anger rising, but kept his voice steady. I never even met your father. Not in any way that mattered. That's the problem, Alexander said. He stepped closer. My father built that company from nothing. Do you understand that? He started with a single property and turned it into an empire. That's his legacy. That's our family's legacy. And you think you can just walk in and take it because you pulled him out of a burning car? I didn't ask for any of this. Then refuse it, Victoria snapped. Sign the papers. Give it back. Walk away. Daniel looked at both of them. He saw their anger, yes. But underneath it, he saw something else. Pain. The kind that came from feeling unloved by someone you desperately wanted to impress. Your father didn't leave you the money because he didn't love you, Daniel said slowly. He left it to me because he wanted you to learn something. Learn what? Alexander's jaw was tight. That we're not good enough. That money isn't what makes you good enough. Victoria's face flushed red. "Don't you dare lecture us about our father. You didn't know him." "You're right. I didn't." But maybe that's the point. Alexander took a step back. His voice dropped. "We're going to fight this. We have lawyers, resources. You'll spend years in court. You'll lose everything trying to defend this. Is that what you want?" "I don't want to fight anyone," Daniel said. "Then don't," Victoria replied. "Walk away. Today. And we'll forget this ever happened." They left without waiting for an answer. That night, the neighbors started whispering. Daniel could hear them through the walls. The landlord called and said rent was going up next month, $300 more. When Daniel asked why, the landlord just said, "New market rates." The next morning, Ben came home from school crying. Daniel knelt beside him. "What happened, bud?" Ben's face was red and blotchy. "Kids at school said you're a bad person. They said you tricked someone to steal their money." Daniel's heart broke. "That's not true." "I know, Dad. But why are they saying it?" "Because sometimes people lie when they're scared or angry." "Are we bad people?" Ben asked, his voice so small. Daniel pulled him close. "No, son. We're not. We've never been. And we never will be." But that night, after Ben was asleep, Daniel sat in the dark and thought about walking away, about going back to the way things were. Poor, but peaceful. Struggling, but safe. He picked up his phone and called Thomas Reed. "I can't do this," Daniel said when the lawyer answered. "I can't let my son suffer because of this money." Thomas was quiet for a moment. "This is exactly what George feared would happen." "What do you mean?" "He knew his children would come after you. He knew they'd try to make you feel small and unworthy. That's why he left the video." "What video?" "Eliza has it. He told her to show it to you if you ever doubted yourself." Daniel hung up and called Eliza. She answered on the first ring. "I was waiting for you to call," she said. 20 minutes later, she was at his door. She held a small USB drive. "He made this 3 days before he died," she said. "He was so weak he could barely sit up. But he insisted." Daniel plugged it into his laptop. The screen flickered. Then George Whitmore appeared. He was thin, his skin gray, an oxygen tube in his nose. But his eyes were clear. "Daniel," George said, his voice hoarse. "If you're watching this, it means my children came after you. It means they tried to make you quit. I'm sorry for that. I raised them wrong. I gave them everything except the one thing they needed, the understanding that wealth without character is just greed with a big bank account." George coughed, winced, continued. "You don't know me. But I know you. I watched you for 5 years. I saw you give your last $20 to a homeless veteran. I saw you work a double shift so you could buy your son new shoes. I saw you fix an old woman's leaking roof for free because she reminded you of your mother." Daniel's vision blurred. "I was rich my whole life," George said. "But I was poor where it mattered. You're the opposite. You have nothing, but you're rich in every way that counts. This money is yours because I trust you to do what I never could. Use it to help people. Use it to show my children what I failed to teach them. Don't let them scare you away. Don't let them make you feel unworthy. You saved my life twice. Once from fire. Once from dying knowing I'd left everything to people who didn't deserve it." George leaned closer to the camera. "Be brave, Daniel. For your son. For yourself. For me." The video ended. Daniel sat in the silence. Tears ran down his face. He didn't try to stop them. Ben appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Dad? Why are you crying?" Daniel opened his arms. Ben ran to him. Daniel held his son and let himself break just a little. "I'm okay, buddy," he whispered. "I just missed someone I never got to meet." Eliza stood by the door, crying too. The next morning, Daniel called Thomas Reed. "I'm accepting the inheritance," he said. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway. Not for me. For George. He trusted me. I won't let him down. The Whitmore family won't stop," Thomas warned. "I know," Daniel said, "but I'm not running anymore." He hung up and looked at Ben, who was eating cereal at the kitchen table. "Dad?" Ben asked. "Are we going to be okay?" Daniel sat down across from him. "Yeah, son, we are. It might get hard. People might say mean things, but we're going to be okay, because we know who we are, and nobody can take that away." Ben smiled. It was small, but it was real. Daniel smiled back. Thomas Reed scheduled the meeting for the following week. Not a courtroom, just his conference room. Daniel, Eliza, Alexander, Victoria, and a few other Whitmore relatives whose names Daniel didn't catch. The room was silent when Daniel walked in. Victoria sat at one end of the long table, her posture rigid. Alexander sat beside her, his face unreadable. Eliza was already there, sitting near Thomas. She gave Daniel a small nod. Daniel took the seat across from Alexander. He'd worn his best shirt. It was old, but clean. He'd ironed it himself that morning while Ben ate breakfast. Thomas cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss the terms of George Whitmore's will and the distribution of his estate. Mr. Carter has accepted the inheritance. The Whitmore family has requested this meeting to voice their concerns." Victoria didn't wait. "Our concern is simple. This man has no right to our father's fortune. He's a stranger. He doesn't understand what our father built or what it means to our family." "George chose me," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't ask for this." "You manipulated Eliza," Victoria shot back. "You knew she'd confirm whatever you wanted." Eliza's voice was sharp. "I confirmed the truth, that Daniel helped me when no one else did, when you turned your back on me." Victoria's face flushed. "You made your choice when you left the family." "You forced me out," Eliza said, "because I loved someone you thought was beneath us, because I chose happiness over money." Alexander held up a hand. "This isn't productive." He turned to Daniel. "Let me ask you something. What do you plan to do with that amount of money? Do you have any idea how to manage that kind of wealth?" "No," Daniel admitted. "I don't." "Then how can you possibly think you're capable of honoring our father's legacy?" Daniel met his eyes. "George didn't leave me the estate to honor his legacy. He left it to me to create a new one." The room went still. "What does that mean?" Alexander asked. Daniel took a breath. "It means I'm not going to run your company. I'm not going to pretend I know how to manage real estate or investments. But I know how to help people. And that's what your father wanted." "Help people," Victoria repeated, her tone mocking. "With our money." "With his money," Daniel corrected. "He earned it. He decided what to do with it. And he chose this." Alexander leaned back in his chair. "You really think you're better than us, don't you?" "No," Daniel said. "I think I'm different. And I think your father saw that difference and believed it mattered." Victoria stood up. "This is ridiculous. We're wasting our time." "Sit down, Victoria," Alexander said. She looked at him, shocked. "What?" "Sit down." Victoria slowly sank back into her chair. Alexander looked at Daniel for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell me about the day you saved our father." Daniel hadn't expected that. "I don't remember much. There was smoke, fire. I heard someone screaming. I just reacted." "You didn't know who he was?" "No. He was just a man who needed help. And you walked away afterward. Didn't even leave your name." "I had to get back to work. My shift wasn't over." Alexander's expression shifted slightly. Something softer appeared in his eyes. "You saved him and went back to mopping floors." "Yes." "Why?" Daniel frowned. "Because that was my job. Most people would have stayed, would have made sure he knew who saved him, Would have expected something in return. I didn't save him to get something back, Daniel said. I saved him because it was the right thing to do. The room was quiet again. Then Eliza spoke. He saved my father, too. Everyone turned to look at her. What? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Eliza looked at Daniel. You don't remember, do you? Daniel shook his head slowly. Remember what? 3 years ago. There was a motorcycle accident near Lincoln Elementary School. A man was lying in the street. A truck was coming. You ran out and pulled him to the sidewalk. Daniel's memory stirred. He did remember. A man on a motorcycle had been hit by a car running a stop sign. The man was dazed, couldn't move. Traffic was still coming. Daniel had been walking past on his way to pick up Ben from school. He dragged the man to safety, waited until the ambulance came, then left to get his son. It had been just weeks after Sarah died. Daniel remembered being numb, moving through the world on autopilot. But when he saw that man in danger, something in him woke up. That was your father? Daniel asked. Eliza nodded, tears streaming down her face. David Whitmore, George's brother. My dad. He had a concussion and 2 broken ribs, but he lived because of you. He told me about it later. Said a man in work clothes saved his life and disappeared before he could say thank you. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. Alexander stared at Daniel like he was seeing him for the first time. You saved both of them, Alexander said slowly. You saved our father and our uncle, and you never told anyone. I didn't know they were related, Daniel said. I didn't know either of them. Exactly, Eliza said. You didn't help them because of who they were. You helped them because they needed help. That's what George saw in you. That's why he trusted you. Victoria's voice broke. Our father never trusted us like that. Never believed we were capable of being good without wanting something back. That's not true, Daniel said. Everyone looked at him. He wanted you to be good. He just didn't know how to teach you. So he tried to show you through me. Daniel leaned forward. He didn't leave you out because he didn't love you. He left you out because he hoped you'd learn something from watching what I do with what he gave me. Alexander's jaw tightened. And what will you do? My son needs surgery, Daniel said. He has a heart condition. Nothing life-threatening yet, but it will be someday. The surgery costs more than I'll make in 10 years. So first I'll fix that. Then I'll pay off my debts. Buy a small house. Something with a yard where Ben can play. He looked around the table. Everything else goes into a foundation, the George Whitmore Foundation. It'll help single parents who are working 3 jobs and still can't make rent. It'll help kids who need medical care their families can't afford. It'll help people like me who are trying their best, but drowning anyway. You're giving it away? Victoria asked, incredulous. Almost all of it. Yes. Why? Because I don't need that much money to be happy. I just need enough to take care of my son and help other people do the same. Alexander stood. He walked slowly around the table until he was standing in front of Daniel. Then he extended his hand. My father was right about you, Alexander said, and I'm sorry for doubting that. Daniel stood and shook his hand. Victoria remained seated. But her expression had changed. The anger was gone. In its place was something raw and painful. We failed him, she said quietly. Didn't we? Our own father. And we failed him. Eliza moved to her side. She put a hand on Victoria's shoulder. You didn't fail him. You just forgot what mattered. But it's not too late to remember. Victoria looked up at her. I'm sorry. For everything. For making you leave. For not being there when Michael died. For turning my back when you needed family. Eliza's tears fell freely now. I forgive you. The 2 women held each other, crying. Alexander turned to Thomas. The company. What happens to it? Mr. Whitmore specified that operational control remains with the family, Thomas said. Daniel inherits the assets, but you retain management. Alexander looked at Daniel. On one condition. What's that? Daniel asked. That we run it the way you'd run it, with integrity, with care for the people who work for us, the way our father wanted, but never enforced. Alexander's voice was firm. You teach us how to be better, and we'll make sure the company reflects that. Daniel nodded. Deal. 1 year later, the George Whitmore Foundation held its opening ceremony. The building wasn't fancy, but it was bright and clean. Inside, volunteers helped families fill out applications for rent assistance, medical grants, and job training programs. Daniel stood near the entrance, watching people come in. Ben was beside him, healthy and strong. The surgery had gone perfectly. The scar on his chest was already fading. Eliza walked over, carrying her baby. A boy. She'd named him George. He would have loved this, she said, looking around. I hope so, Daniel replied. Ben tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad, can we go see Grandpa George now? Daniel smiled. They'd started visiting the grave every month. Ben had never met George, but he'd heard enough stories that the old man felt real to him. Yeah, bud. Let's go. They drove to the cemetery. Daniel parked near the office where he used to work. His old supervisor waved at him through the window. Daniel waved back. They walked to George's grave. The headstone was simple but elegant. Eliza had chosen the inscription. Daniel knelt and placed a small bouquet of flowers at the base. Ben stood beside him, quiet and respectful. Eliza held baby George close. Thank you, Daniel said softly, speaking to the stone. For trusting me. For believing I could do this. I promise I'll keep doing it right. Eliza smiled. He knew you would. Ben looked up at his father. Dad, what would have happened if you didn't help Miss Eliza that day? Daniel thought about it. I don't know, son. Maybe nothing would have changed. Maybe everything would have. But you did help her, Ben said, because that's what you do. That's what we do, Daniel corrected gently. Our family helps people, not because we expect anything back, but because it's right. Eliza shifted baby George in her arms. Do you ever regret it? The way your life changed? Daniel looked at his son, healthy and smiling. He looked at Eliza, no longer alone. He thought about the families they'd helped through the foundation, the people who had jobs now, homes now, hope now. No, he said. I don't regret it. I just wish I could have thanked him in person. You are thanking him, Eliza said, every day, by doing exactly what he hoped you would. They stood together in the quiet cemetery, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Daniel read the inscription on the headstone one more time. George Whitmore, 1950 to 2024. A man's wealth is not measured in money, but in the people he leaves behind. Ben took his father's hand. Can we come back next week? We can come back whenever you want, Daniel said. They walked back to the car together. Behind them, the cemetery was peaceful. The grave was covered in flowers. And somewhere, Daniel thought, maybe George Whitmore was watching. Maybe he was smiling. Maybe he was finally at peace, knowing he'd chosen right.